Okay, we're back for our second half of our week 8 class of digital media. So today, at this point, we're gonna jump out of AutoCAD into a different program. And so up to this point, we've been using AutoCAD, which was considered a vector-based program. The images that you produce in AutoCAD are created using programming. If you zoom in really close, these lines never get any thicker or thinner, because the computer processor keeps updating the image and producing an image that is computer generated, as opposed to pixels. If you look at a photograph, a typical photograph, and you zoom into it, you'll notice that it's made up of a bunch of little dots, similar to your TV set. So those dots are called pixels. So there are programs that deal with images, photographs, and that program in this class we're going to use is Photoshop. And so what we're going to do, and I will pull up the quickly the project. We're going to import our AutoCAD files into Photoshop, and we're going to create different layers in Photoshop like we do layers in AutoCAD, similar concept. And we're going to colorize the pictures to make them look more realistic. Ideally, you're going to use real products to do this. But again, this is the first stab at Photoshop. Do the best you can. But I'll give you techniques of how to do that and create a sort of realistic looking elevation drawing using an AutoCAD file as a backdrop. Now, in the past, I've talked about this design firm project. You guys need to work on a presentation of a design firm research project with your teams. Hopefully, you've been collecting this during the last few weeks. Now it's time to show me the work you've collected. And if you haven't, now's the time to start doing this work. So you're going to collect images of samples of the projects that indicate different aspects of their work in different phases. Anything from schematic design to design development to completed projects, any kind of photographs or images from their website you can collect. Make a Pinterest board and post those to the Pinterest board for your team. Also collect graphics of the company themselves, maybe the company logo, a map of where they're located, any images that you'll ultimately use for your presentation. You can start making a preliminary PowerPoint presentation or use Google Slides or whatever software you're accustomed to using. But you'll begin to make a presentation slideshow of the firm you're researching. And then you'll obviously let me know who on your team is responsible for what aspects of the work. But give me a Word document with the information I described there. And give me links to the Pinterest board so that I can see them myself and confirm that you collected the information. Again, it's very, very preliminary, and this is just the Pinterest board images that you collected on the different companies. That's the other half of the project for this week. The first step is to make a PDF file. A PSD is a Photoshop file. Photoshop file that is of your washerman elevations. So you're going to take your elevations from CAD, which is why they need to be completed, and turn them into colored images using Photoshop. So, by show of yes or no, how many of you have used Photoshop? Out of curiosity, give me a yes or no in the chat there. And anybody arrived late, I think you hear me. If you did not hear me call your name, make sure you type in your name in the chat. Otherwise, you've been marked absent. Some people use a little bit of Photoshop. Okay. So this is Photoshop, and you all have access to Photoshop. You have a free account. I've given you a link at the beginning of the class to gain access to Photoshop. So review my notes from week 1 that describes how to gain access to the Adobe Creative Cloud. Your email addresses should gain you access to the Adobe Creative Cloud. Adobe Creative Cloud. If you simply just type Adobe Creative Cloud and go onto their website, they allow you to download software. So if you sign in using your student email address, you'll gain access to the different software applications that they have. One of the applications we're using today is Photoshop. Ultimately, we'll use InDesign. That's another software you can get from Adobe here. And I'll quickly walk through the description of what that is. Joella, I see you, and I've marked you present. Isaiah, Molly, Karina, Olivia, Beyonce, Summer, and Saba are all absent until I hear from you all via chat. Okay, so Photoshop. So here's an AutoCAD file brought into Photoshop, and the idea then is to take a AutoCAD file that's a digital media. It's created in a program like AutoCAD, which is done with computer software to draw those objects. If you zoom into those lines and drawings, you can never see pixels because those objects are not photographs. They're generated by computer. Well, Photoshop is completely opposite. It's a program based on pixels. And if you were to zoom into any image in Photoshop, ultimately they break down into little squares of color. Those are called pixels. And so as a quick demonstration, here's an AutoCAD file from previous semester, and students turn this drawing into this drawing. Do I have all the layers on? Let's see. Just make sure they turn everything on. This is what they've done in the past. So we're going to do something similar using your washroom drawings, your washroom elevations. But what you're doing is you're going to collect images off the internet to make your elevations look more realistic, and you can combine it with some 2D effects that you can do in Photoshop itself. But again, this is your first attempt to work in Photoshop, and so obviously I don't expect you all to create images as nice as this, but who knows? I'll give you the instructions. We'll build up our Photoshop skills every week, and you'll slowly improve your work in Photoshop. So this is the goal. So if I go File Open in Photoshop, I can load the PDF you produced for the homework assignment, which is this here. And then here, I'm making this file come into Photoshop here, and I'm going to choose resolution 300. We'll talk about this in a second. And you'll see here, this translates into pixels. However, if I change this to inches, you'll see it's 36 by 24 inches and 300 pixels for every inch of your drawing. So 36 times 300 equals the number of pixels. See, pixels, 10,800 is basically the math. 36 times 300 and 24 times 300 equals the size in pixels. I'm going to bring this in at 300 dots per inch, or what they call pixels per inch, or what they call resolution. They all mean the same thing. It's the overall the quality of the image, and hit OK. So here is a PDF file brought into Photoshop. And over on the far right, you've got layers. Way over here. Layers are also up here. There's a layer menu. And this is the layer list here that gives you information on different layers you created. When you start a project, they typically have a layer called background. I opened a PDF file. They call the layer 1. Like AutoCAD, if you turn off the light bulb, the layer disappears. A little different than AutoCAD. But what's white on the screen means it's transparent. And so it's kind of difficult to see the drawing because it looks like a bunch of lines, and the white part of the PDF is transparent. So this button here, the little plus sign, makes new layers. I'm going to click on that and make another layer. I'm going to launch that. I'm going to activate that layer like we did in AutoCAD. Same thing. You can highlight a layer, double click on it, and you can change the layer name. I'm going to call it white. I'm going to do caps. White background. Because you want to be explicit in terms of what it is you put on these layers. This layer here, layer 2, I'm going to call that AutoCAD drawing. So I know what's what. AutoCAD drawing is this layer. Did I move the wrong? think I got the layer names mixed up. This one here is AutoCAD drawing, and this one here is white background. And you can grab this layer here with your mouse, hold down your mouse button and move it below the AutoCAD layer. Am I doing this right? AutoCAD. Yeah, okay. So this button here, AutoCAD drawing, if I turn on the light bulb, the drawing shows up. I turn it off, I don't see it. This layer here called white background, I'm going to turn it on. There's nothing to see yet. I'm just going to fill the screen with white. Edit. Fill the screen, and here are your options: foreground and background color. Foreground and background. There's other options here, but these are the most important ones today. Foreground and background. What are those? Over here on the left, this is your toolbar of various tools, and at the very bottom, you see the little white square and a little black square. The white is the foreground color, and the background is the background color. You can make these colors whatever you like, but I want to fill. These are the default colors that come with Photoshop. I'm going to fill the screen with white here, which is the foreground. It's on top, the foreground color. Hit OK. And then I'm going to turn on my AutoCAD drawing. And if you use this magnifying glass, similar to AutoCAD, you can just click and hold your mouse and zoom in to this drawing here, and you can see there's your AutoCAD file. And the language show up here nicely. If I double click on the magnifying glass, it zooms in a little closer. And if I double click on the hand, the little hand right there, the hand is the pan command, like in pan and AutoCAD where you move the screen left and right. You use a little hand to pan. But if I double click on the hand, it zooms out to the entire drawing. So between the hand and the magnifying glass, you can't get lost. And you have to make sure that the layer you're working on is currently highlighted. Really important to make sure the layer you're working on is currently highlighted here. So we made a layer, and we went to Edit Fill, and we filled it with white. And we called it background layer. Background. And if I turn off that layer, you wind up seeing, like, imagine this is a piece of acetate, a piece of plastic, a piece of glass, where these drawings are sitting on top of the glass. Well, the white in the PDF file is like glass. It's transparent. These little boxes here denote that something's transparent, and that's how it handles PDF files. So I need to go into another layer and make the background white so I can see what I'm doing. And so I have two layers here for that purpose. Now, if I go to Image, and I come down here, Image Size, it tells me how big my file is currently. And here I want to change this to inches. And you can see here, the drawing is 36 by 24 at 300 dots per inch. What does that mean? Well, it means that it imported a file, this time from AutoCAD, that was 36 inches long, 24 inches tall, exactly the same size as AutoCAD, into Photoshop. And 300 means how many pixels, or these little squares of color, are in every square inch of this drawing. And so if this number was 72, then that would be a very low quality picture, because the more little pictures you see per square inch, the better the image looks. And so 72 dots per inch is something, if you look at a file on the internet, you know, they typically are very low resolution, low quality. They're probably a 72 dots per inch. If you want decent quality or average quality, you can do something at 200 dots per inch. If you want something really nice quality, you make this number 300 dots per inch. And this is a pretty high resolution quality image because we chose 300 from the beginning. And you can see here the pixels is 36 times 36 times 300 equals 10,800. 24 times 300 is 72. So typically you want, if you're producing images for the sake of printing, you want this number to be, I would imagine, 200 or above. That'll look pretty decent. Anything below that begins to look rather awful. When you zoom into the image, you begin to see the pixels really quickly. if I go into the web here, and I don't know, I'll look up a dog, and I look for images here, and I've got random pictures of dogs, right? And I grab this happy-go-lucky guy here, and I right-click, Save Image As, and I copy that file into my folder. So let me copy this into my folder. I'll call them sample dog. I save the file as a JPEG. When you right-click and you save as, here it says it's going to make a JPEG file, JPEG file. Your camera makes JPEG files. When you shoot a picture with your phone, it makes a JPEG file. It's one of the different formats that Photoshop can read. It creates a file with pixels. I saved the file here under, I thought I saved it here, dog photo. Save. So if I open up Photoshop here, I can go File Open, and I can open up dog photo. Here's dog photo in Photoshop. How big is this file? Well, it's a matter of inches. It's also a matter of resolution, pixels. The higher the pixels, the better the image looks. So I download this off the internet. Let's see how big this file is. File, image size. This picture is here. If I go to inches, is 8 by 5. It's an 8 by 5 image. Download it off the internet by right-clicking and saving as. It's 96 pixels. That's awful quality. If you were to print this out, you can tell right away it's very poor quality, because if you look at it really close, you begin to see the pixels, because there's only 96 of them for every inch of this file, and the image looks poor. Okay, so if I use a magnifying glass and I take a look at this guy, you can see rather quickly, you can see those pixels right there. Those pixels right there. Well, for every inch of your file, there's only 96 of these. If you can imagine there were 300, well, then you get a lot many more of these pixels, and they'd be a lot smaller. And then I'd have to zoom in much closer to see the pixels. But right now, if I were to print this out and I were put the picture to my nose, I can see the edges of these areas here are pixelated. There's like little steps of little blocks of color right there. Looks like stairs. That's pixelated. That's pixelation. So the quality is not that great. That begins to go away if you have a very high quality image taken with higher resolution. Image size gives us resolution, and it's really poor. It is what it is. But in our picture, here, I ask for a very high resolution quality, because here, if we intend to print this out, I intend to have the nicest looking picture at the best quality. Quality at least 200 and above will give you a really nice image. If you were to print this out at 24 by 36 out of a printer, it would look pretty good. So the higher the better. So Photoshop has various file formats, and I've listed some of them here. And we talked about one, a JPEG file. JPEG or JPG file. It's a what they call a compressed file. It's a file that shrinks an image and makes it as small as possible. But files can also be, these are all the different raster formats. Photoshop is a raster program because it deals with pixels. If you're dealing with pixels, you're dealing with a raster program. If you're dealing with computer graphics that you can never see the pixels because they're all recalculated and recreated anytime you zoom into an image, that's called a vector-based program, like AutoCAD, like Revit, like 3D Studio Max. These are all 3D programs. When you're dealing with images, you're dealing with JPEGs, PNGs, PNG files, Targa files, although that's kind of outdated. I don't really use that often. TIFF files, bitmap files, EPS files, GIF files. And I described what these do. We'll get into this going forward, but a JPEG file is a compressed file. It takes a high quality image and makes it a smaller file size. by erasing some of the colors actually. But it's really hard to tell when the resolution is high. PNG file is similar to a JPEG file, except it includes what's called an alpha channel. Parts of the image can be transparent. A target file does the exact same thing, older format. A TIFF file is probably the most highest quality file you can create in Photoshop. The best possible image, but with the high resolution, it's really hard to tell the difference between a TIFF file or a JPEG file, unless you're in the, in this type of work. If you're doing large format printing or digital media for large magazine companies, what have you, a photographer, for example, you might be able to tell the difference between JPEG and TIFF file by looking at the images very closely. But for our sake, there's not much different. A bitmap file is a very old file, creates large file formats. I would avoid this at all costs. EPS files are used in vector-based programs like Adobe Illustrator. That is a program similar to an AutoCAD, but it's more illustrative. You can create images and cartoons, for example, line drawings with a program like Illustrator, like a drawing program. Then there's GIF. A GIF is a small image size like a JPEG, but it only has 256 colors. It has 16 colors, 16 basic colors, and 16 shades of those colors, like red and blue and green, all the basic colors, whereas JPEGs can hold thousands of colors. In fact, not in millions, in fact. GIFs are used for banners, like a logo on a website. It's typically a GIF file. Like maybe it's a couple different colors. It's a GIF file. If it's a photograph, it's probably a JPEG PNG. If you go to a website and look at the images of anything, it's probably a JPEG or a PNG. If it's a logo with 1 or 2 or 3 different colors, it's probably a GIF file. So let's go through some commands that we can use in Photoshop. I'm going to use our helpless dog here. This is the layer that comes in Photoshop. When I download the image and open it in Photoshop, it calls it background. I like to double click on this and give it a different name. Even if I call it background, I want to unlock this layer when it's italicized. I'd like to demonstrate this with this italicized removed to expose the transparency that's behind this image. So I'm going to rename it here and hit OK. Just doing that, a little icon disappeared here. And I did it for the following reason. Here are your tools on your left. Now, this is a very destructive program. Like, if you do something, you wind up erasing your image. And so you got to be careful. You got to, be careful what you're doing if you want to preserve your file here. So this is a photo manipulation file. So you can do anything to a photograph you can imagine, to your heart's content. You can put a birthday hat on this guy. You can change his fur from brown to red. You can do any number of things. As you've seen on the web and in memes and what have you, you can do any number of things to an image. This is the program that does it. So on the left here are different tools. We're just going to walk through a few of them quickly and just give them a little shout out and let you know what they do. This is the marquee. Marquee lets you grab things with a rectangle. If you click and hold, you can grab things using a rectangle or a square, or I never use these guys, single rows, but I typically use a rectangle tool. And then if you grab things, for example, grab this piece right here. Now the command above it is the move command. So if I grab the one above it, and this layer here has been turned into a new name, I got rid of the last one, which I italicized, and I called it background again, but I customized it. If I did that, and I use the move command, I can move this picture from here to here. And notice behind this picture is transparent background. That's why you change your layers, so that the transparent background is behind you. It's useful at times. The marquee lets you grab a piece of the picture and move it around. Maybe you're able to snap it back together again if you're lucky, but good luck with that. The snapping tool doesn't work like AutoCAD because you're dealing with pixels. It's a little not exactly the same. But you want to use your friend here, the undo command. Undo move. Control Z, same tool as AutoCAD. I'm going to Control Z. And if you want to use the marquee and click anywhere on the screen, it'll undo that command. If I grab the marquee, escape doesn't work. Delete doesn't work. Oh, well, delete does work, but in terms of undoing the marquee, which you see little marching ants, this little highlight box that's marching along here, I call those the marching ants. That means that marquee is active. Control Z undoes. Okay, so the marquee grabs things. You got the lasso. Right here is the lasso tool. You open this up, you got the lasso, and then you got the polygon lasso. We'll deal with the magnetic later. But the lasso here, if I got the regular lasso, it lets you grab things by using your mouse as kind of like a pencil. Like if I can sketch out, for example, an area like this and close the loop, it highlights it. And then you can delete that area, copy that area, move that area, do something with that area I've highlighted here. And you're grabbing pixels. And if I zoom in really close, you can see, you're grabbing pixels. You see the little stairs? You're grabbing those pixels here, not those, but those. And different pixels cause the image to show different colors. And when you zoom out, you can see what the image is. It blends it together. The marquee does that. The polygon marquee, if I click anywhere on the screen to deactivate the previous highlight, I can use a rectilinear kind of selecting tool, right? So I can do the same thing here, and I can, for example, grab the poor dog's head, double click, and I have a little leg there, but I didn't need it. But here I can move that around. I can hit delete on my keyboard. I can do something, but obviously when you delete something, you're destroying the picture. You lose that image. You lose that information. You got to watch out what you're doing. Might as well. It's probably a good idea to keep a backup, a copy of this layer with the same image, so in case something goes wrong, you can go back to the backup, the copy. So you can select different ways here, lasso or polygon. Now, before I go any further, any questions about those tools? I'm going through them rather quickly. I'm not going to get into much detail, but I just want to give you a cursory overview of what those tools do. And obviously, you obviously can go back to my recording and watch this video and see what I was up to. And again, I'd like to see everyone in class reply when I ask questions to make sure that you guys are still logged in, and I haven't, unfortunately, dropped my connection, which happens sometimes, but I want to make sure everyone's still here. So everyone in class, please reply. Yes or no, if you have any questions. There's another way of selecting things here called the magic wand. If I click on that, you can see here at the top of the screen has a tolerance of 50. When I click on something, it takes the pixel I selected, that one, there's a pixel at the middle of my crosshair. I select it, and it gives me 25 shades darker and 25 shades lighter to arrive at a tolerance of 50. 50 tolerance means different shades of color. So it's going to be light brown-ish, darker and lighter, depending on what I select. If I click here, well, 50 shades is selecting all this. It grows from that area, like a hatch pattern in AutoCAD. It grows from that area and branches out and grabs everything within 25 shades lighter and 25 shades darker of the point, the pixel I selected. And it grabs all these areas here. If I grab this tongue, for example, let me undo this. I grab the marquee and click on the background. Use the magic wand, click on the tongue, for example. 50 shades kind of gets into this area here. It's pink-ish. there's a little bit of red in that fur. Unfortunately, I picked it up. So if I want to tighten my selection, I probably want to knock this down to maybe 20, within a range of 20 pixels. Now again, I can use the marquee and click on the background and grab the magic wand again and click on the tongue. There's 20, 10 shades lighter and 10 shades darker than these pixels here I selected. And if I go a little bit higher, maybe 30, I can pick on another area of his tongue and grab a larger area. Like here, and as I grab more of his tongue, it begins to pick up more and more areas that are within 30 shades or tolerance of the pixel I'm choosing. So if I pick here, it's going to be like a dark pink color, and it's going to probably pick up the inside of his mouth. And maybe there, if I choose that, it's going to pick up black, and so on and so forth. And here I've pretty much selected his tongue. If I use the move command now, you can see what I've grabbed. So it's a way of selecting things. Another way of selecting things. When you select something and you want to return to it later, that's very, very useful. And so there are ways to select things and save them. Let's say if I grabbed his eyes for whatever reason, and later I want to highlight that again for whatever reason. When you go into here, let's see if they moved it. Color settings, where are they? Hang on a second. Here, under select, I can use save and load selections. So if there's something that took me a while to select, maybe that tongue took a little while to select, you know, with this magic wand here. And later I need to change his tongue from pink to purple or something. There's some work I have to do in a given area of an image. By the way, I'm going to unhighlight this and use the magic wand there. As I continue to select here, I'm grabbing more and more of this area. Let's say I do this, and I want to save, and I want to bring that back later. I can go back into select and save selection and give it a name. You know, maybe I'll call this tongue. And I'm working in the file at some later date. And I need to bring back the tongue to do some more work on it. And again, this could be some part of your design, a sofa in your image, some part of your graphic file. You want to, it took some time to select it. You can bring it back at a future date by going back to select and loading your selections. And the entire list shows up here of things you can select. So for example, if I go tongue, hit OK, it brings back that selection. It's a recording of what it was I selected at that time, because I need to do some more work to that area. So selections can be a useful tool. There's other ways to select. I'm using the toolbar, but I can also use select by virtue of this select menu. And for example, I can select by color range. So the way this works is that you click color range, and you have a little map here. And as you pick a pixel on the image, let's say this nose here, if I click on that, this fuzziness controls like the range of that pixel. If I want to include more pixels that are pinkish, I can start moving up this fuzziness factor, and those areas begin to highlight. And I can bring in a little bit more, and suddenly these areas here that are showing up, maybe I didn't go that far, these areas here that are appearing in this image will get highlighted using the select color range. So for example, here, it grabbed, I guess this color and I and this color here are in the same range. Obviously, this is much easier because these pictures were flat. This is all like a solid color instead of like a shades of color. But just to give you an idea, we're not going to go into this in very much detail until future class. Color range is another way of selecting. Another way of selecting is similar. You know, select. Let me unhighlight everything. If I, let's say, pick the magic wand here, and I click here. Let me bring that down. 10. Okay, like that. I grab this fur here, for example, and then I go select. Similar to this area. In the entire image, what's similar to that area? All these areas here. Now, in this example, it's going to be really hard to select this entire dog's fur and not the eyes and nose, but there's ways of doing it as we continue to progress through this software. But I'm scratching the surface this week, and I don't want to get into too much detail on how to accomplish these tasks. And besides, we're going to be using elevations and architectural images instead of photographs to do this. But I just thought this was a quick example I can share with you. Painting tools here. The defaults are this little black and white little swatch there. If I use those little icons there and this arrow, it can flip the relationship. This is the foreground, this is the background. But if I click on any one of these colors, you get a color wheel. So here I can change the colors. And as I choose here on the screen, click, this is the color that becomes the foreground if I hit OK, because I chose that foreground swatch to change to the green color. So for example, I can highlight this area here and edit fill with the color green. As an example, I'm going to undo that. What you typically want to do is use the plus sign here for layers, make a new layer, and maybe call a layer, green bar or something, and then highlight this area and place the work on the new layer, edit fill, and place on that layer there. So that layer is on top of this layer, which is a dog. So if I turn off the dog layer, I've got the green layer. If I turn off the green layer, I've got the dog. They're stacked on top of each other. This one's underneath that one. This image can move anywhere on the screen on top of this image in the background. Foreground and background. These layers are stacked. This is at the bottom here is what's at the bottom of the stack. And you can take that layer and hit the trash can and delete it if you no longer want that layer. Delete and choose yes. But these are the colors that can be changed. So when I go edit fill, foreground is now green, not white, which was previously. If I want to go back to the original color, then just click right there, right above the swatch, click, and then flip-flop the relationship and make it black and white, foreground and background colors. So when I fill the screen with a certain color, I know what it's going to be here. Like any drafting tool, not drafting, but drawing tool here, you've got a paintbrush here, just to quickly show you. The paintbrush command here has a different size to your paintbrush. This is a very small 5-pixel size. So if I were to paintbrush this on a new layer, again, I don't want to destroy the picture. If I paintbrush something on the screen here, I'm doing it on this new layer, so it doesn't destroy this picture. Otherwise, these pixels replace those pixels of the dog, and I wind up losing my work. So always get in practice of making new layers for things you want to make. But this is the paintbrush here, and it's using that color. If I make this size bigger, then obviously that brush gets much, much bigger as I'm painting. Again, on this layer here, which can be erased or turned off or whatever the case may be. I'm going to delete that layer. Yes. And make a new layer on top of this layer. And you can click and drag these layers around to decide who's on top of whom. But the paintbrush does that. Again, There are some additional tools here. I don't want to get it too far into the weeds here, but I think I might save some of these tools for next week as I want to focus on the assignment. And so, because these won't affect your work. But what's important here is layers, making new layers with the plus sign, deleting the layers here when you don't longer need them. You can also right-click on layers, and there's a bunch of shortcuts here. So let's say, for example, I right-click on the dog, the background layer, and I duplicate the layer. And here I can give it a copy, and I can change this one here. If I were to take this one, move it over here, for example, then this one is still in the original place. This is the original. This is a copy that I moved off to the screen, and because I moved it, the resulting background is transparent. So if I turn this layer on, I'll see the other picture. Beneath this picture, imagine this is glass. So beneath this picture is this picture. And that's I do that by duplicating layers. Delete the duplicate, okay. And so here, or here rather, they have created, my previous students created several layers based on this elevation. So we'll walk through some quick techniques of how to create your very first image in Photoshop using this backdrop. And again, I'll use this example here. I'm just going to zoom into this. And so for these objects, ideally you want to replace them with real pictures. So for example, I went to this website here, and I just did a search for commercial toilet fixtures, and I looked at images. And you can see all the different images here, but I'm looking for a front view of a bathroom toilet. And so I was able to find this website here that has a picture of a website on their website of the toilet right there, wall-mounted toilet. And I want to take that picture. So I can right-click, and sometimes this doesn't work. I'm looking for save image as, and this doesn't let me do it. So typically in most programs, there is a snipping tool. I don't know what they call it on the Mac, but the snipping tool that lets me take this picture off the internet. So I use new, snipping tool, I use new, and it's a screen capture. And I'm just going to grab this picture right here, make sure I grab it all. And I'm going to file save as, and I'm going to save it as JPEG and stick it in my folder, which I've already done. So in Photoshop, I can open up this file here. This is the file I took off the internet. I can take this picture and copy it into this other file. These are all, again, these tabs are different files that I have open. This is confusing. I can close. I want to go back to these other files and show you, but this is the original file we opened, the PDF. And here's a toilet, wall-mounted toilet fixture. And here, I'm just going to do a couple of quick things. Here, I'm going to get rid of background. Double-click on the background layer, hit OK. That removes that background layer when it's italicized. You want to get rid of that because I want to expose the transparency behind it here. I'm going to use pick the magic wand here and click here in the background here. And notice how it grabs all the white, because I clicked here. If everything's the same color, it all gets selected. It doesn't matter what shades of white. I'm going 5 shades darker and 5 shades lighter. They're all the same color. It's very easy to find a solid color like this. I can grab this area here and grab those areas here white and choose delete on my keyboard. Oh, actually, not yet. I have to. Actually, I'm gonna select. It's currently grabbing the the background here, I like to grab the opposite of the background. This is the background I'm grabbing. I don't want to grab that. I want to grab the fixture itself. So it's easier for me to grab the background quickly like I've just done. And here under select, I can select the opposite, which is the inverse. Select the inverse. And by the way, there's deselect if you want to deselect something or select everything on the screen. These all let you select objects on the screen. But I'm selecting those pieces there. And I can always go copy, edit, copy, and go into my image here, edit, paste. And there's the fixture right there. It's right here on the layers. I'm going to put it on top of the AutoCAD drawing. So it shows up on top of the lines. I'm going to zoom in with the little zoom command here. And I'm going to grab this with the move command and put it right there. And if it needs to be bigger, I can always go edit, transform, scale. And using the shift on my mouse, control key on my keyboard, hold on control, I can make the picture bigger or smaller to make it kind of match the AutoCAD file in the background here. And when you're happy, double click. And that is one fixture I've added there. And if I turn off the layers, that's what I've done right there. But I'd like to have a couple of these. So I can select, let me show the AutoCAD drawing. Make sure this is highlighted though. Make sure your layer is highlighted here. I can select this bathroom fixture here. Basically, I'm selecting this and copy, Control C, or I can go here, edit, copy, Control C, edit, copy, Control V is paste, copy, paste, copy, paste, and there's the copy. I move the command, paste it again. There's another copy. I've got 3 copies on 3 different layers here. 1, 2, 3. And with the AutoCAD drawing turned on, I can then figure out where these should be positioned. And they kind of want to line up with each other. That's why you get the little purple lines there to line up with each other. The screen is background is transparent here because I've turned off the white background, but I can turn it back on if you need to see it. And I'm just going to move these things into position here, like so. These actually have levers here to flush the toilets, whereas these have the, kind of the little laser. I can remove the laser. I can basically, if you can imagine, this layer here, there's select command, select that piece right there, and hit delete on your keyboard. Again, make sure the layer is live. Delete on your keyboard. You wind up deleting those pieces. If I open up this piece here, making sure the layer is live, it has to be highlighted. To make an effect, I can delete that laser. And then in here I can do the same thing. If I want to somehow omit part of that image, so you can begin to create an image like this. Does anybody have any questions so far on copying and pasting images into Photoshop? In any part of class that I mean, obviously our review may have lasted longer than I anticipated, so I'll record additional instructions for you all to do for this homework assignment if we run out of time. But this is what we're going to be doing. You're going to be replacing parts and pieces of these images on the screen here. And so by looking at your original file, you can begin to learn, what those images are called, what those parts are. Like this is a grab bar, for example. You can try to find a grab bar in Photoshop, not Photoshop, rather the web. Grab bar. And you're looking for an image of a grab bar from the front. Maybe they should have a front view. And you can look for images, for example, that one there. That one's very useful. That's a front view of a grab bar. So if I right click, save image as, save it to your computer. Here, I'll call it the grab bar front. Oh, it's a web app. It's a WebP file. I don't want a WebP file. So what you're going to want to do in that case is make sure you use your snipping program, your screenshot program, and snatch that picture right there, and then save it. Grab bar front, because you might have a grab bar side view. And then in Photoshop, you can open up that file. So for example, here in your folder, you grab bar front. So what do you want to remove from this picture? Well, I probably want to remove this white background here. So I'm going to use this button here and click on the white background. But here it grabbed some of my bar here. When you grab things, and I'll probably include this in a supplemental video, how you can refine your selection here. With the selection tools here, you notice that here, let me do it a different way. Okay, here, your selection tools here are varies. So for example, a rectangle, if I want to grab this bar, and I can't grab the white because it's grabbing some of that piece there, I could select this by grabbing, this bar here for openers. I selected that bar with the rectangle. Then I can open this up and grab an elliptical tool, and using the shift on my mouse, on my keyboard rather, the plus sign shows up, I can grab this and draw an ellipse of that area there and add it to the selection. It made the selection bigger. It's now this horizontal bar plus the circle. If I do it again here, I can grab that circle there, hold down shift, and here I can drag a circle, holding down shift to draw a circle. I can select this round area, and I've done this before obviously, so I can do this much quicker than you can, but you'll get practice at this work. If I grab those pieces right there, I'm grabbing the handlebar there, the grab bar there, go edit copy, go back in here, edit, paste. And that bar is about the size of this bar here, but I ran out of room. And again here, I want to start naming these correctly. Grab bar. This is a toilet. This is a toilet. This is a toilet. So what I want you all to do is practice copying and pasting images into this drawing, and then we'll learn how to do things that are a little more advanced, like for example, add tile to the background walls. Create the illusion of a door there. These drawings look very flat. How do I create a better looking door? Now, some of this stuff you can do currently because I can find these images online. I can find a door online. I can find, obviously, toilets online. So in this first pass, I'm looking for you all to just simply use these preliminary tools I've given you to produce an image on top of the CAD drawing. And then later, we will take that a step further and further refine it to make it a little more realistic. So don't fear that this is going to have to be completely photorealistic coming out of this class. It's not necessary. I'm just looking for you all to practice some of these tools preliminarily while we begin to understand the ropes of how to use Photoshop. Here's the grab bar, for example. So I know that here, under the rectangle marquee, I can, for example, grab half this bar here and do edit cut and edit paste. And that gives me this piece here. Now, if I bring back the CAD drawing, what I'm trying to do is put this here. And there's a piece missing from here. So under this layer here, this is my grab bar layer. I'm going to grab this bar, just this piece right here. Again, just this piece here in silver. Control C is copy. Control V is paste. I'm going to grab that piece. I'm going to put it right here. And use my mouse to move it up and down to make it look like it's continuous as best I can. We'll learn how to fix that look right there. But what we've done is we created this here. This is the grab bar. And I've tried to piece this together. As best I can. And you can take these pieces of the layers and use Shift to select them all because they're all the same thing. Right click and merge the visible layers. These are the only layers that are on right now. These layers are on. I'm going to combine them into one layer. Merge visible so that that is one layer and that's one object. So first draft is to try to come in here and find different elements, grab bars from different elevations, door handles, maybe a door with a door frame on it. This is called a kick plate. This is a receptacle. Look at the PDF file I've provided you in class and try to find those elements online and try to copy and paste it and put it on top of your AutoCAD file in a Photoshop file and turn that in as a first draft. And then later, next class, we'll learn more advanced tools of how to dress this up to make it look more realistic with shade and shadows and adding some background here to reproduce the tile on the wall so that you'll wind up with an image that's similar to this image here. This took a couple classes to create. This is not one class. So it took a couple classes to get there. So we're going to exclusively focus on Photoshop next class to improve the quality to this level. But this class is simply focused on using some of these preliminary commands in AutoCAD and Photoshop to produce a preliminary image here. And then you're going to turn in this Photoshop file and try to find all these elements here. They might not be exactly the same size, but you can use the scale command to make them fit. But try to find these images as best you can. And if you cannot, obviously leave them as CAD files on the screen. And we'll work on this some more next week. Okay. Is that clear what we're doing? It's mostly copy and paste. And also, I want you all to become familiar with these commands. I mean, there are some tutorials I provided on I believe LinkedIn training for Photoshop. You know, you should take it upon yourself to learn some of these tools above and beyond what I'm teaching you, because Photoshop will be one of those applications at school that will be very useful to you, not only this class, but going forward. In fact, it'll be very useful in your career. You know, so the sooner you understand this software, the better. But we're simply working on layers this week, copy and pasting, some of the editing tools I've shown you, and next we will make it more and more sophisticated moving forward. So let me know if you have any questions. Contact me outside of class if you have to. You can set up office hours with the links I've provided. So if you need more help, let me know. But again, the first step is to finish your CAD project. Some of you that have not, finish your CAD project, then start this thing. Give me this PDF, this PSD file, and the Pinterest links and the documents I asked you in the instructions. Anybody have any questions? It seems I've been tracking the chat and I don't see many questions. You guys are clear what we're doing? Okay. Okay. All right. We'll talk next week. We'll spend a little time at the beginning of class. Maybe it's going to be quick, maybe a half hour, But the entire time, we're going to have a smaller break next week. Most of the time, it's going to be working on creating this elevation in a realistic fashion using additional tools in Photoshop. I'm gonna give you some instructions. Two teams should not have the same firm. So I've given you a link to the Excel file. You know, let me review that. You guys should have the link to that file. I'm going to post it again in the in Canvas. There should be 3 firms you choose from. No two teams should be working on the same firm. So if someone else is using it, then go to your second option. And someone's using that option, go to your third option. But everyone should have a unique firm you're focusing on, and the first one to fill out the list gets that firm. So I'll share that live link again to the Excel file. Type in your firm's name and put 3 firms up there, and make sure they're unique. Okay. But contact me if you have any questions. But I'll post the link shortly. All right. Any other questions? Okay. So 2 separate projects next week. And have a good week, and we'll catch you next class. Okay. Good night now.